Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this electrifying broadcast of the Black Business Roundtable. I'm MC Pearson, representing 25M Printing. I also serve as one of the hosts of the Wake Up Show Chicago, powered by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. We can be heard weekly on WVON AM, on iHeartRadio, and on Facebook and YouTube every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Today, I'm thrilled to guide you through this immersive event alongside a lineup of esteemed leaders hailing from all across the state of Illinois. Together, we will delve deep into the pressing challenges and boundless opportunities that shape the landscape of Black businesses in Illinois. Our shared goal is crystal clear: to spark meaningful conversations, cultivate partnerships, and drive positive transformation within the Black entrepreneur community. So get ready to participate. We want you to join us in the chat on Facebook and YouTube. This will ensure that your insights and queries play a pivotal role in our discussions. Brace yourself for an enlightening journey filled with inspiration, valuable insights, and empowerment as we embark on a collaborative voyage of knowledge exchange and impactful discourse. So let our voices be united together towards a positive future for Black entrepreneurship in the state of Illinois. Now, typically, this is the part where I would introduce my co-host, Mr. Larry Ivory, chairman of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. But much like life itself, technology is causing technical difficulties. So shortly, he will be joining us. But let me tell you a little bit about Larry Ivory. He is highly regarded in the business community and renowned for his pivotal role in championing Black-owned businesses. He has a distinguished background with the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce and with the National Black Chamber of Commerce. He has a firm commitment for supporting entrepreneurship. Larry brings a wealth of experience and valuable insights to this roundtable discussion. He's known for his unwavering advocacy for Black businesses. Larry's relentless efforts to nurture growth and opportunity within the Black business sector have firmly established him as a notable leader in entrepreneurship and advocacy. So we invite you, sit back, hang out with us for a while, join the conversation. We want you to be a part of it. We all want to grow together. We all want to learn together. And so without any further ado, we're going to start this conversation up. Today we have an esteemed list of panelists that we will bring on today. They'll be joining us throughout the course of an hour. First, we have Ms. Carol Adams. We will also have Senator James Claiborne, Commissioner Bruce Montgomery, Ms. Sheila Brown, David Patterson, Mr. Daniel McDuffie, Arnold Carter, and Robert Johnson. And today, right now at this moment, we do have two of our panelists with us, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Carter. How you doing, gentlemen?
Hey, how's it going? Pleasure to meet you, and welcome everyone. And I'm looking forward to a robust discussion.
All right, all right. Where you know what, gentlemen, introduce yourselves and where are you from? What do you do in business? And Larry has a reason that he invited you guys to participate in this black roundtable discussion. Can you guys enlighten us about that a little bit?
Sure. Again, my name is Robert Johnson. I'm the managing partner of the Solomon Group, which is an impact management consulting firm here in Chicago. I live in Bronzeville, on the south side of Chicago. The Solomon Group was founded in 2009. I coined myself as a lawpreneur. I'm a combination of a lawyer and an entrepreneur. I've been a lawyer about 30 years, a corporate lawyer. I've been a serial entrepreneur since the age of 12. So I am one of the people that Larry is passionate about, a Black entrepreneur, but my passion is actually helping Black entrepreneurs get access to capital. That is one of the last frontiers and one of the primary barriers that prevents us from being able to scale our businesses, being able to enhance our communities, and being able to create sustainable communities where we can live, work, play, and pray. So at the Solomon Group, that's what we're focused on is providing opportunities to get access to capital, helping minority and women entrepreneurs grow and scale their business, teaching them how to scale their businesses through franchising. I spent 15 years as in-house counsel for McDonald's Corporation and Also was the company liaison to all the Black McDonald's owner operators. So I have a passion for minority franchising. Seen firsthand that McDonald's has made more minority and women millionaires than any other company in the world. We just got to practice socially responsible franchising in our community because it works in our community. And then teaching our entrepreneurs how to grow their businesses through mergers and acquisitions or acquiring existing businesses. That right now we're experiencing the greatest transfer of wealth in our history. It's called the silver tsunami, where these older white entrepreneurs, primarily male white entrepreneurs, are exiting their businesses and their children aren't interested in taking over the business. So there's a tremendous opportunity for our entrepreneurs to buy those businesses and flip those businesses to black owned businesses. Everybody wants to flip real estate, where it's just as easy to flip a business from a white business to a black business. And we need to have a education around what that looks like so that we can begin to create generational wealth. What we're focused on is really looking at how we can close the racial wealth gap. Well, I'll stop there because I know we have another panelist that needs to introduce themselves as well.
Oh, is that is my turn?
That'll be you, Mr. Johnson. Yes, sir.
Oh, that's Johnson. Oh, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm Arnold Crater. Ever since that last president, everyone, that President Carter, everybody assumes I spell my name wrong. It's Crater, Crater. So whoever put that up, it's just flip it, but that's okay. Arnold Crater. I'm currently the Vice President of Delivery Services and Managed Services for SLG Innovation. We're a full service IT management consulting firm located in Chicago. Been around since roughly 2010. However, we're really a national minority-owned IT firm. We're in about 9 states, doing everything from health and human services applications to cybersecurity. We're currently helping to implement the current 911 system for City of Chicago. We worked on 311. So we're very entrenched in doing full service support. Me personally, I've um, I've been the formerly CIO for the Regional Transportation Authority. Spent time at Accenture. I had my own company for quite a few years, Advanced Concept Chicago. So I've been on every side of the coin. From building my own company and to actually managing the P&L on the other side to actually delivering management consulting services at a pretty high level. So about been over doing this about 30 years, and I think I might be part of that silver tsunami that he just mentioned. Um, I don't like to think believe that, but so sort of a serial entrepreneur, yeah, as well. Just constantly doing things. I've also have a real estate business where I own property. So just everything entrepreneurial, and trying to help other small businesses do the same, in coaching and mentoring them and how to do this. So that's kind of it for just a general overview.
Man, it sounds like we have two powerful panelists on this line. Oftentimes people talk about how do we get a seat at the table and how do we get the information for leveling up. And, not a lot of people like to share that information. So yeah, I like the fact that Larry had this vision to put together this Black Business Roundtable, because even the first edition of the roundtable was very powerful with the information that was shared. So you know, Larry wanted to kick this episode off with this one question for each one of the panelists. What do you think that we can do to improve the state of Black business within the state of Illinois? Where do
Um,
we need to start at, gentlemen?
can I start, Robert?
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
I think we need to understand sort of the first of all, we have to be ready to do business. I mean, that's kind of par for the course, right? We assume that you have to be ready. Nobody's going to give you business just because you're Black. You have to be good, and you have to have relationships because there's a lot of people that are good at what they do, But you also have to have relationships. You have to spend time building the proper relationships. But after you get through all that, that's just what it takes to get in the game. Now we need to understand, like at the state level, what's going on. About 65% of the state's business is awarded through master service agreements. And that's because the staff, and it's not a procurement issue, it's the staff uses the easiest procurement tool that they could possibly use. And when I was on the state side, I mean, that's what I did. I mean, you don't want to use procurement, so you're going to use an existing master service agreement to do whatever you need to do. Now, what that does is that only leaves 35% business left for minorities to share in. And guess what? We're still competing for that other 35% with other primes and things like that. So our percentage that we get is probably that's available is probably around 5%, that 5 or 10% that we really get to um, actually go after. Now, in order to change that, what has to happen is we need to focus on policies that direct staff, because that direct staff to use um, a particular channels for procuring, and push them away from using the master service level agreements that guys like Deloitte. I mean, if you look at Deloitte, Deloitte is killing the state with billions of dollars worth of business, and they constantly get more and more added to their portfolio because it's one of the easiest procurement tools that they could use. So we need to focus on developing policies that incentivize the staff to use other procurement tools other than the master service agreement. And I mean, that's it. And then once we create the policy, then the lawmakers can create laws that will dictate how people procure. And until we do that, we're folks are still going to continue to do what they're incentivized to do, and that's to get work done as easy and as fast as they can. And when they do that, the people who own the master service agreements are dictating who the minority vendors are for the state.
Wow.
Um,
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
yeah, no, I'll stick with the policy discussion as well. I think what we have to do in the state of Illinois is become business friendly, pro business friendly, particularly as it relates to minority businesses and black businesses, especially because we are disproportionately impacted by all of the economic data and all of the market forces that exist in America. Of the 3.6 million black businesses that exist in the United States, 96% of them are solopreneurs. So when you think about that, 96% of our businesses are one person businesses, one entrepreneur. It's a hustle. It is a solopreneur that is out there struggling, trying to make it. So it is almost impossible to sail or scale a one person business. So we have to make sure that the mechanisms and the environment is right for us to actually do business. The majority of our businesses are lifestyle businesses where they really just fund the expenses of individuals who are trying to live, whose life is lifing. And so we got to put practices in place and policies in place and streamline the ability for our businesses to be able to get access to capital so that they can hire employees, put them in situations where they can have relationships with banks because most people, most black entrepreneurs presume that they have a banking relationship because they have a bank account. That is not a banking relationship. You need to have your banker be on a first name basis with your banker. You need to have that person understand what it is that you're trying to do and be a partner in the process of you trying to grow and scale your business. The state needs to put much, much, much more money towards capacity building for black entrepreneurs. The vast majority of us have not had the exposure to putting processes in place that will be necessary to build a sustainable growth business. We also need to open up capital to those high growth, high demand industries. The majority of black businesses are in low to medium range service, heavily service type businesses. We have very few businesses that are in the technology, manufacturing. I mean, the things that drive the economy for the state. We don't have a lot of access to those types of businesses. So we are disproportionately in service businesses and lower paying businesses. So if the state is interested in seeing our businesses thrive, they have to make it an option through partnerships, strategic partnerships with some of these industries where we've been systematically kept out of, in order to develop strategic partnerships so that we can grow our minority businesses, so that we can grow our communities. The every black community in the state of Illinois has a retail gap. And that means that in every community that we live in, there's more people in there that are seeking goods and services than are available in their community, because we don't have the businesses in there to provide the residents with the amenities that they're seeking. So we have to go outside of our community and spend our money. So we have plenty of blight, plenty of vacancy, vacant buildings, vacant lots that could be utilized for infrastructure development. And that will then impact the crime and the violence and the high unemployment that exists in our community. But it has to be a partnership. The state has to really get serious about addressing the deficit that exists in our community if we're ever going to create a condition and an environment for black businesses to be successful.
You know, I absolutely agree with both of you gentlemen. When we talk about industries where there is wealth, where there is a lack of diversity, you know, my industry, the print and graphic design and promotional industry, is a multi-trillion dollar industry and is represented by less than 1.5 black and brown. I often tell people, if you want to know where the money is, you know, pay attention to where they're not talking about. But you know what? I want to bring Miss Carol into this conversation. Miss Carol, we started off the hour with the primary question that Larry wanted us to answer, and it was, or it is, you know, what is one thing that we can do to improve the state of black businesses in the state of Illinois? I welcome you to the stage, Ms. Carol. What are your
Well,
thoughts?
of course, and invest and make capital accessible to those businesses that need to grow, that need an opportunity to go for high level contracts. Make certain that we get the right kind of consideration, because there's still situations where we're sort of systematically dismissed and not able to compete on an even playing field. I think I see where there are gaps, there should be opportunity for us to fill those gaps. Some of these businesses we know better than anyone else. Some of these issues and challenges that we face in our society, we know better than anyone else how to handle them. But usually somebody else gets the big contracts and then they contract with us to tell them what to do. So we need to be the ones who are the major contractors, not subcontractors all the time. And many of us are prepared to do that. We've managed big budgets, we've managed big agencies and organizations, and we're prepared to step up to the plate as entrepreneurs. We simply need, again, the access to capital, the even playing field, an opportunity to get these contracts.
Yeah, you know, there's one thing regarding capital, and I know we say you know, access to capital and things like that, but you know what one thing that we don't do as minority small businesses is focus on our business credit score, because if you get your business score to a certain level, you can have your own line of credit and you won't need a bank.
You
Seriously.
can be your own bank.
Yes, if you get your credit score to the right level, you can have a line of credit easy. Um, that's easy to get.
I
And
think
if you
making that kind of information easily accessible to people who are
right,
emerging businesses would be very helpful.
yeah,
Well, I go back to the point that I made earlier in terms of the idea of looking at what I call it is bringing Wall Street to MLK. let's look at the things that have been successful that basically that white folks have done because they created the system, and how do we tweak it and freak it so that it works in our community. So when you talk about mergers and acquisitions, that's anything over 20, 25 million. The majority of our businesses are not at that scale. So we're not talking about M&A. When you're talking about below M&A, you're talking about business brokerage, which is basically buying mainstream businesses. So as brilliant as the three of us, four of us are on this phone, if the four of us start a business tomorrow and we go to any bank in America, they are not going to give us any money. I guarantee
That's
you.
true.
So if you instead the four of us come together and we say we want to buy this manufacturing facility from this white guy that's been running it for 30 years and his kids don't want to take it over and it's doing $50 million a year, and we could have okay credit. The four of us could barely scrape together a 700 credit score, and we can get that deal banked because the bank will look at the assets and the ability of the business to pay back the debt
Right.
service as opposed to ours. So again, we have to begin to educate our people about the options that exist. The reason we don't know about businesses for sale because it's a very similar process to houses being for sale. Everybody, you go all on the internet, you go on Instagram, everybody talking about buy this block, flip this block. It's the same process to buy a business. The only difference is when somebody is trying to sell their house, what do? They hire an agent and they put a sign out in their front yard and say, "My house is for sale," so everybody knows that the house is for sale. The difference is when the business next to you is for sale, it's done confidentially because because the business owner does not want you to know that they're selling their business because why? The competitors will try to run them out of business and the employees will quit. So businesses are sold confidentially. They hire a business broker and they put a listing out that says the business is for sale, but it's generic. It doesn't have pictures of the business. It just tells you the numbers about how much this revenue business does in revenue. What are some basic generic facts. You contact that business broker, they send you an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, so that you can get the financials of that business, and you can look for yourself how much money this business is making, or hire somebody, another business broker or lawyer or CPA to look at it. And it's like, this business makes money. You take it to the bank, and the bank will finance it. Similarly with
So
franchise. Go ahead. Sorry.
Your
go
audio.
ahead, finish your thought.
Okay.
Yeah, and similarly with franchises, 99.9% of franchises are SBA approved, and the other 0.1% that ain't approved, send the FDD to the SBA, and they will approve it. Why? Because the franchise is a proven business model. As I said before, 96% of our entrepreneurs have never run a business before. So we have this startup culture because we're trying to do what the white folks do, but they have access to capital.
Exactly.
The banks will give them money. We don't have that same scenario, so we got to do what works for us. The beauty of being a franchise is that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. You have a proven business model by somebody who has figured out how to do this and has a vested interest in your success. More importantly, franchises work in our community. The average McDonald's does 2.6 to 2.8 million dollars. It's usually outside of it's usually one of the biggest businesses in our community. Employees on average 65 people. Where the average Wendy's does probably about 1.3, 1.8. Average Subway does about 9 to a million. If you have a Chick-fil-A in your neighborhood, it does probably about 3 or 4 million. So the key is identifying socially responsible franchises. There's a list of about 150 socially responsible franchises that don't harm our community, that we need to educate our community about the possibility of either looking at obtaining a franchise or franchising the existing businesses that exist in our community and replicating good ideas. It's not we don't necessarily have to have a Starbucks on every corner. We can have a black-owned coffee shop on every corner, or a black chicken business that's franchised on every corner.
Right. True. One thing that one thing that I think we're glossing over is that it's access to knowledge. I think collectively we probably have all the knowledge in the world. We just do a poor job of sharing knowledge with each other and actually accepting knowledge from each other. When we fight like crabs in a barrel for that 4% subcontractor, we kind of get caught up and we miss the boat as a group on
We
how to
do.
collectively work together to solve, because we have all the answers to solve all our problems. We do. We just don't get together well. That's just
So you know what, Arnold? I want to add to the knowledge that you said that we need to bring to the table. So let's add to this discussion, Mr. Larry Ivory. Welcome aboard, Larry.
Hey, welcome. I thought I'd come in on the second half, at least the first quarter. So I kind of stayed back and let you guys handle the first quarter. Now that you brought me into the game, and I'm gonna see if I can impact the game a little bit. Hey,
Yes,
but
sir.
it's
Yes,
always a
sir.
pleasure. I've heard the conversation. It is when you talk about franchising and we talk about our challenges across the board. We have to come together, and I would pose this question to the group: is that when we had the civil rights movement, we all came together and we worked together and we got something done. And we had under the George Floyd, we had a movement of Black Lives Matter. And the question that I'm puzzled by, and I would ask this of our panelists, would be, why haven't we come together and coalesced against? How come we haven't coalesced in the same fashion? Now we understand when someone gets brutalized, and we saw it, but every day they're killing us economically. And when they attack affirmative action, which they got rid of, and then they went right into, what we call the uh, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, that had an impact. But we haven't seen the same type of outcry. So I'd be curious from you guys' perspective as to perhaps why, and or am I missing something that we need to understand? I'd like to start with Dr. Carol Adams because I know she's a woman about town. She knows a lot about a lot of things, and I'm proud to have her on this call.
Well, and also as a veteran of the civil rights movement, I want to bring some of that to the table here. And that is that some of us stopped fighting because we thought we had arrived. We thought we had gotten there. We were satisfied with a little bit instead of realizing that it was, in fact, just a little bit, that it was decimal dust. It wasn't really any of the real money. And so it takes those of us who realize it constantly keeping it out there, constantly bringing it to the forefront, making a part of our discussion so that some tragedy doesn't have to happen to move us into action, like a George Floyd situation. The everyday economic disparities under which we live are tragic enough, but we have not brought them to the forefront the way we did in the past. And many of those organizations that did so either don't exist anymore or exist at a very diluted level in terms of really engaging the community. If we put these facts and this information in front of our community on a consistent basis, sort of like you're doing through the Illinois Black Chamber, not giving up on putting it
yeah,
face. Who's getting what you're not getting, what you were promised, what you didn't get there, making sure that we get behind politicians who keep this at the forefront so that there's not some kind of sense that we won something and we can relax. Because in fact, things are moving in the opposite direction. So we got to do some marketing work and some old school organizing.
yeah. You know, how do we get the same level of urgency like a George Floyd situation has that brings people out? Because I know I live in Flossmoor, and you guys just saw that the black police chief is getting fired, and 300 like people showed up, like you know, and very people from all scales, from high end to whatever, but we showed up for that. But we don't show up for something like this business urgency. I'm trying to
Yeah, we
figure out
got
how
to
do we
keep it
pick.
out there, Arnold.
Hmm?
We've got to keep putting it out constantly. and we really do not.
Yeah.
This is a conversation happening among a few people.
It's like
Well,
they have their knee on the throat of black business right now, and we just taking it on. Yeah, so I hear you say, but so I think Robert, you had your thought you about this stuff.
Yeah, one of the things that I think this group is doing and can continue to do is help us craft an agenda. You know, in order to get unity, we have to galvanize around a set of action items. And I think as we begin to identify those target areas and a message, I think we can begin to engage people because, you know, particularly when you talk about politics, every politician that I ever talked to, you can talk to them for 15, 20, 30 minutes, but at the end of the day, the question is going to be, so what do you want me to do? So
Yeah,
you have to have a response that's concise, and some things that are actionable, and then some consequences that if they don't get addressed, that there's some levers that you can pull, and we have to agree on what levers collective we're going to pull. Because if we go back to, because if you encapsulate what happened in the civil rights movement, it was very clear what we were looking for, and it was very clear what we were going to do if you didn't do it. We're going to boycott, we're going to march, we're going to whatever it was. There was a cause and effect, and I think we've gotten away from what our cause is and what's going to be the effect or the impact if our demands or our needs are not met. Other groups have taken our playbook and they've been running it.
yeah,
And so we got to get back to our own playbook and keep running that pick and roll till they stop it because it works. Because other groups are
You're
doing
right.
it now.
yeah,
Plus, we've got to start putting out some report cards, okay? Because if you think about it, not very long ago, you had a lot of businesses, and that's post George Floyd as well, come out and talk about how they were going to up their investment in the community, what they were going to put in, how much they were changing in terms of what they were going to invest. Nobody's gone behind them to check and see what happened with that. What did you do? Did those of you who said you're going to put 200 million, where'd you put it? Where did it go? What happened with that?
yeah,
They got away with announcing the big promises, but there's been no accountability. There's been nobody demanding that we get this information back. So
Yeah,
that's part of it as well.
yeah. Dr. Oz, I believe compliance is a critical issue. And I think the numbers that I heard, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but of the commitments that were made by corporate America, they've only spent about 15% of that commitment. So they still sitting on 85% that they haven't done. And I don't know if there's anyone, I don't know if it's the press is holding them accountable, but I think we're going to have to hold them
And the
accountable.
press is not going to hold
Uh,
them accountable.
but
We have to do it through organizations like yours. It used to be through organizations like the NAACP and CORE and this and that, that were coming out saying, hey, these things have not happened. But I think about one of the major banks, a number of those major banks that got called out for taking our deposits but not investing in us, not giving even mortgages and all of that. They came back with all those promises. Nobody has ever said, how much of that have you done 4 years later? How much has happened? Because your answer to me is often from these institutions to offer financial literacy classes or something in my community is not an investment. That's just another way of you saying, well, you don't have anything because you don't understand money. Now you don't understand how to have an account. We get kibbles and bits all the time. We're not raising nearly enough hell.
So, with that being said, going back to what Larry said and what you also said, Doctor, and we're talking about all the money that because of George Floyd, all these corporations were saying that they were going to be spending. A lot of those corporations were talking about we're going to dive that money into DEIA efforts, and now we're starting to see the rollback of DEI efforts across the state of, I mean, the entire country. So with that in mind, is there still leverage to hold them accountable for what they
Yes,
promised
because we're
now that
still
though now that it's being rolled back? Go
we're
ahead.
still putting their money in our we're still putting our money in their banks. we're still spending our dollars with them. We still have spending power and leverage, even if we don't realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this, because this pivots right into another part of the conversation, to the group and to our listening audience and those who have joined us. And we're going to be taking some questions from the audience also, so that we can get them involved and engaged in the conversation. But I think that when we have lobby day, people sometimes don't really, in my opinion, perhaps, don't really understand the importance of lobby day, because it is, the basis of making sure that you have a seat at the table and being relevant. And the only way you can be relevant is not by casting a vote and voting for someone one time. You got to spend some time in Springfield. You got to mobilize. You got to raise some money. You got to, do some things that traditionally we haven't done enough of. Don't say that we don't do it, because we do some of it, but we haven't done enough of it. So the lobby day is really about bringing a concentration of black businesses to take off for a day, one day out of the year, to come down to Springfield to meet with the Secretary of Transportation and look him in the eye and say, we see a lot of people working, but they don't look like us. What's the problem? What you're going to do? And here's what we think you need to do to fix that. The same thing with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. The same thing with the Department of Correction. The same thing with HFS. All these organizations spend billions of dollars, and we have to hold them accountable. But the only thing that people are really afraid of, if they're in office, is your ability to get them unelected. At
Hmm.
the end of the day, if you can mobilize people, that's what makes Trump such a threat, because people know that he can mobilize people and they can get him out of office. It's not that they respect him, but his ability to move people is his power. And that's why I said a government built for the people, by the people, shall not perish. Only thing that's telling us that the people always have the power. And so this is a day that black businesses convene in Springfield to make sure their voices are heard in IT, like Arnold Critter chairs the IT committee. He's going to be talking to the chair of IT, the leader of IT, the executive director of IT, and asking them the tough questions about how we get more participation. What are the numbers like? And that's why it's so important for us to come together. So I like to pivot into, what lobby day means to us, and why is it important, and what do we do to make it better so that we can be more relevant at the end of the day. And I'm going to start with our attorney, and then go to Arnold, and then come back to Dr. Adams. But I'd like each of you to take a moment and tell me, why do you think lobby day is good or bad from your perspective, and what can we do to make lobby day even better, and have a greater voice and be more specific.
Well, it's part of our democratic institution is that we have the right to lobby and to go before the elected officials and voice our concerns and have our voice heard. So it's important, and it's something that we should probably do more of. And I think in the second part of your question, in terms of how to make it better, what I think could be a good tactic, if it's not already being employed, is to use case examples. Going back to my law school days, you know, cite cases to the lobbyists of what it looks like. Because despite all of the things that we talk about, and all of the things that we've been denied, black businesses are extremely resilient. We out here, trying to fight the good fight every day and doing what it is that we have to do, without having access to the same resources that our counterparts have access to. So being able to demonstrate to the legislators, look, these are businesses that are thriving in spite of not having access to capital, not having access to the same resources. Imagine what it looks like if the playing field was level, or show them examples in which folks have gotten access to capital, because the data is clear. is that minority businesses, minority entrepreneurs are way more resilient than their white counterparts, way more innovative and creative because they've had to be. So if we truly want to become a state that is an economic powerhouse and continues to be an economic powerhouse, then you have to equip those who are capable of being efficient, capable of creating viable businesses, and who've done so with little resources to whom little is given. Imagine what will happen if much is given, or if you just level the playing field. And that's all we're asking for. We're not asking for anything special. Just give us what we're owed, what we're due, and see and get out of our way and show us what we can do. Um, so I think that that's the approach that I would encourage us to take is show what we've been able to do with the little that we've gotten, and we can and imagine what we can do with more, and still keep your foot on the things that they have promised that they haven't delivered upon.
Yeah. Hey, let me just make this comment. I see that we have. I'm reading some of the inputs that we're getting, and I'm always a little bit concerned with people who may be with a white supremacist group that has a who gets on a podcast like ours and pews a whole lot of negativity. But I doubt that they have significant background in business, and I think we always got to be aware of how people want to sabotage what we do as an organization. And I give no credibility to that person in terms of some of the comments I've seen on our piece here. But we're going to keep moving because we understand, and we've been doing this and fighting for the fight for our people. And when people like that, who are sometimes sent by white people to undermine what we do, we have to be very careful that we don't let them become a distraction because it is about, when black people make a move, just like when we start making any type of progress, all of a sudden you have an extreme right wing group who all of a sudden Supreme Court is eradicated affirmative action. Then you have them coming after the whole issue of DEI and everything else. They have intentionality, and I am not surprised at sometimes they're not always trying to find a way of undermining us. So let's keep moving. Arnold, give us your perspective in reference to what
Lobby Day.
lobby, what can we do for, is Lobby Day important one way or the other? And what can we do to make Lobby Day even better as we go down and represent Black businesses in the state of Illinois?
Well, I think obviously it's important because I think you don't exist until someone sees you or you have a meeting, right? Other than that, you're just out here. So I think it's really like one of the first steps or one of the tools used to make sure that people know that we exist and they know that we are participating. Um, but I think one of the things that we can do to help make it better, or not just to make it better, but uh, to make full use of it is strategically, to go down with a plan in terms of trying to understand, you know, um, there are multiple channels or multiple legs to solve this problem, and the particular departments, direct is one, procurement is one, legislative is one, and I think part of what we need to do is do somewhat like a discovery to understand, what's driving the behavior that we're experiencing in each one of those channels, that's impacting how we do business. And if we go back to, like, for legislators, one legislator told me, because I kind of went to him complaining about what was going on, and he basically said, what do you want me to do about it? And he said, but if you bring me a policy, he said, I have people on my staff that can develop laws from the policy. So instead of bringing me something that's late or reactive, bring me a policy that changes, that directs, that points out the issue or directs, or defines something, and then he can create a law that he can help to create a law that can enforce that policy. So I think we need to look at each stakeholder and figure out what they need in order to help us solve this sort of global problem. And we can use Lobby Day as one of our uh, discovery and strategic planning periods where um, we collect information and then we come back, we debrief, and we develop our strategy from after that, and how we proceed to go forward.
Dr. Adams?
Well, I sort of had a loss of innocence when I went to the state and worked at the Department of Human Services. I learned so much about how legislators really operated when I got to Springfield that I never had any inkling of when I was in Chicago. So it taught me to tell people, watch what the people who you voted for vote for.
Yeah.
Okay, we
Mhm.
need to look at the records of the people that we put in when it comes to our interests and voting and acting in our interests. We need a couple of different kinds of report cards. And when we use Lobby Day as a vehicle, we need to go with those facts, with what the kids would say, with some receipts that say, hey, you had an opportunity to put so and so here and it didn't happen. Because there are laws on the books right now about how much money they're supposed to spend with us, and they don't spend it with us,
That's
and
true.
there are no consequences, and nobody's trying to make consequences happen. So we need to take our receipts. We also need to recruit participants with intention. So if you're
Mhm.
going to somebody that's over a particular area, like technology, for example,
You said you couldn't
recruit
unmute. You
some
could unmute
technology
yourself.
companies to go along and participate in Lobby Day. If we're going to be calling on the human services and the HFSs and so forth, recruit people who have businesses in those arenas to go. And they'll go if you give them the comparative data that shows what people are making as opposed to what they are, okay, and what their experience has been, and what the law says as opposed to what is actually happening. Because we're voting for people who are not voting for us.
Absolutely. Well, let me
Mm.
just make this comment based upon my experience being on the BEP Council and also on the Procurement Policy Board and several other committees appointed
Right.
by leadership. Is that once you get on the inside, like Dr. Adams says, you see things from a different point of view. And a lot of times we think that we have a clear understanding, but we don't. And so, like the good book says, they got a zeal of God, but not according to his knowledge. And what we have to do, even our legislators, who represent us, they are representatives. A lot of times we think that they really have a good handle on procurement. And the fact of the matter is, they don't. Not that they're not smart, that they're not intelligent, that they're not fighting for us, but all of us didn't start off with a degree of knowledge. Like um, the Attorney Johnson, he understands franchising, but he didn't. He wasn't born understanding that. He had to learn that. So we're going to have to take time to learn procurement and understand the ins and out of procurement, so that we can ask the intelligent questions and they don't run circles around us, because I see that happen often when I hear people talk to people and they don't have the fundamental understanding. So we need to take time to train our people, to educate our people, because we're as smart and smarter than anyone else, and that we need to prepare ourselves to do real combat by understanding the laws. And I'll give you this quick example. The sheltered market is a law, a procurement law, and it says that every BEP council meeting that they hold, you must allot a certain amount of time to discuss discrimination. And if you find discrimination, you shall, not may or could or can consider, you shall establish a sheltered market to correct the discrimination. And it can be negotiated and non negotiated bid. Now, that's the law. Now, when it's convenient for them, they don't want to follow the law. But let us make a mistake about the law, they want to put us in jail. So we have to make sure that we understand the law, enforce the law, and get people who will enforce the law. And when you hit them with the law, and we stay on top of it, I think we can get the desired results that we want. And that's what I think Lobby Day is all about to me.
And I think if they hear about it from more people, And from people from various sectors who they're not used to hearing it from, it may also make them have to step back and say, if somebody says, hey, why didn't you vote for this? Or why didn't you stop this when it happened? With some specificity to let people know that we are indeed watching and we're keeping score. And these are things that we're going to bring up when it comes to your appointments or your elections and all of that. You can get a different kind of response. I've seen it happen.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I think that also needs to happen, Larry, you were speaking about how we need to become more educated, and Dr. Carroll was speaking about how we need to come together. I'm going to bring up one of the statements that was made in the comments, and it was directed at something that Brother Johnson said, and what was said was we don't want to copy white people. And I've heard this statement time and time again. And Brother Johnson, I'm going to allow you to address this as well if you like. And so I believe that it was when Brother Johnson was saying that they are franchisees that are selling off their businesses because their children don't want to come into those businesses, right? And so there are opportunities for us to buy businesses. And so I think that oftentimes we begin to think that we're trying to follow after white people and how white people made money. It's not following after white people. It's following patterns of success. It's studying what has been done, what has been successful, what was the route that they took, what were the resources that they utilized in order to get to their points of success. And it's paying attention to those things because Brother Robert said something, and I've heard Larry Ivory echo this exact same sentiment. They've copied our playbook and done it better than us. They've copied our playbook and they've ran on with it. And so it's the idea of copying the playbook, paying attention. And so I think that that's really where this statement is directed towards. It's not about copying white people. It's about copying success and then utilizing it within our own community. But Brother Johnson, if you want to address that, I believe that this was directed towards what you said earlier on.
I think you articulated it very well. Is I made the comment about taking Wall Street and bringing it to MLK. So that's my shorthand way of replicating things that have worked in other environments and figuring out how to adapt them to our situation. And
Even
so
take
the
Black Wall Street and bring it back
e-
because
e-
they did
exactly.
things too.
Exactly. It's the
Okay,
same. It's the
and
concept.
they
It's the
taught them
same
how.
thing. Because imagine if Tulsa had the benefit of franchising.
Exactly.
Though, imagine if franchising existed and we could have replicated those black businesses all over the United States, then we would be in a very different position. So the problem with starting stuff from scratch and not having the ability to replicate, franchising is the fastest way to scale any business. There's nothing that comes close to being able to replicate the ability to scale at the rate that a franchisor can. So it's not copying off of them, but is utilizing a tool that exists, but applying it in a way that benefits us.
Well,
So I mean,
Exactly.
I
You
would
know,
say that if you go back to ancient Kemet, where the Greeks took credit for math and science and everything else, all they did was copy and steal our intellectual capital, and we didn't understand it was us. It was that they got it from civilization, and everything that was significant came from ancient Egypt, and that was us. That was black people. So there's a lot to be said. So let me come back to this question, because what I really want to do is focus on the objective. The objective here is that we have a day in April the 10th.
mhm.
That's our day. That's our day. That's our day that we come down to Springfield with our voices, with clear voices and a clear agenda to make sure the governor and everyone else knows that black business is relevant. And we can't say that just because we say we're relevant. We got to show people that we're relevant. And the only way we become relevant is that we come and make our voices heard. That's why we're meeting with leadership. That's why you got CEOs of major corporations coming down. That's why we're meeting with the legislative body, because we want them to understand that we understand that we're not getting enough. That when we take a look at the numbers across the board, whether it be on the federal level or the state level, city level, municipal level, our participation is under our evaluation and our ability to perform. Now, I often say to people, there's no discrimination when it comes to collecting taxes. None. None whatsoever. But when it comes to contracts, there seems to be, they got alligator hands when it comes to us. And so what we're going down there to do is what King was fighting for, we're still fighting for it, is the ability to create wealth and reduce the wealth gap. Because with money comes choices. No money, no choices. And business has to be the leading factor of what drives that and entrepreneurship. Because let's imagine any of us were Elon Musk or Bill Gates, and we had companies of that magnitude, how many of the problems in our community could we resolve? Could we fix? Could we make better? Could we defend? So it's essential to us, from my perspective, that we have a voice and we bring that voice together, whatever our differences are, that we go down to Springfield as a team with a clear voice and clear objectives in terms of what we want. And that's what I'm excited about on April the 10th, is that we're mobilizing, organizing, spending our money, our time, and energy to make sure that Black people have a seat at the table. And we often say, if you're not at the table, guess what? You're on the
You
menu.
on the menu.
So again, I would say to the team is that if there's some questions coming from the audience, you want to pick them up and ask that from our panelists. That would be a great thing to do. So if someone has some questions, and we don't have to agree with your question. We just have to make sure that everybody has this equal opportunity to express themselves and for us to respond based upon where we're at and what we're trying to do. But make no mistake about it, the only objective that we have at the chamber is to strengthen Black businesses. Now, if someone has some great secrets, we'll listen to you. If that helps us to get to the promised land where people get more business, but we think coming down to Springfield is a way of making sure our voice is heard. When we take a look at healthcare, trillions of dollars are being spent, and they're not culturally sensitive. And they're spending this money, that's our money, Medicaid, Medicare, all these areas. And we have to make sure that we get a piece of that money because it creates a better health outcome for us. It's good for the state. But unless we demand that and make sure our voices is heard, talk to Jahan Gordon, who's on appropriation, and LG Sims, and tell them and tell our friends and everybody, we want a seat at the table to participate. That's what this is all about.
I think one of the important things about a month ago on the Wake Up Show, we talked about different lobby days that went on across the country and how they showed up with 200 people, 300 people. And we also highlighted the different bills that were put in place because of those lobby days. I think that a lot of times people think that their voices won't be heard. They've been marginalized for so long and they've lost hope. But statistically, it's been shown and proven that lobby days do work, especially when there are numbers. If we bring those numbers down to Springfield, I think that's when we're going to invoke change. I think that's why lobby day is so important.
Well, let me just say this, guys, and I'm gonna because I've been around. I've seen the good, bad, and the ugly. When white people get nervous, they send Black people after you. It's the game that they play to disrupt you. It's like when we were get ready to do our event, and it seemed like the IRS would call us, everybody would call, and I used to think that was coincidence. And a great strategic guy who was well respected throughout the country, he said, Larry, you think that's coincidence? He says, that's strategy. He said, they're trying to get you off your game and try to get you and disrupt what you're trying to do because they know if you're successful at doing it, the outcome is going to be what you want. And they're trying to make sure because they got a different uniform on. They're playing for a different team. They're trying to stop you from scoring and you're trying to score and they're trying to stop you from scoring. So they're blocking, tackling, and trying to make you fumble the ball. We have to be aware of every tactic, every strategy people use, and we got to be able to have the intestinal fortitude to fight through it. That's why I'm so excited to have, this distinguished panel. We got a gentleman, attorney Robert Johnson, who, my hat's off to him. I mean, he's served at the highest level at corporate America, being one of the legal counsels for McDonald's, and also was one of the leading attorneys for the National Black Franchise Association with McDonald's. Arnold creator Dr. Adams ran a multi-billion-dollar agency. These are people who understand the game, who get it, and we need to really be speaking truth to power and getting ready to celebrate us coming together and getting done what we want to get done. Anyone can chime in after that. I've done my speech now. But that message is for somebody. Those who would want to hear that, that's a message to understand that the enemy is always trying to undermine us because they really do have a different uniform on. They're trying to keep us where we're at. They don't want us to move forward. And they get really nervous when we start talking about getting some of that money that they've been getting all the time. They've gotten comfortable. They've got those millions and billions of dollars. They don't want to share that. They're not interested in sharing that. And so they will do whatever it takes to disrupt and to undermine what we're trying to accomplish.
Clearly.
Yeah, I just
The
want to.
conversation has to expand also beyond just the business community to our community as a whole so that everyone understands that business is all of our business, that our economic development is something that we all have to focus on, not just a few people, so that we have to open it up to the people who are influences in our community wherever they are to join us in Lobby Day, to join us in looking for the economic prosperity that we deserve and that we need. That might mean expanding it to the faith based communities, to the block clubs, to the neighborhood associations, to the smaller chambers to say, hey, we have to join together in this. We have to come together. This is something upon which we can all agree that we need a strong economic force in our neighborhoods. We need complete communities where we're able to buy from and patronize each other. And so that adds to the numbers and it strengthens the voice.
Yeah. I
Yeah, that's what I
So
was going to add in terms of that holistic approach. I mean, when you talk about closing the racial wealth gap is really comprised of three primary components. About 22% of it is as a result of lack of affordable homes and appreciating neighborhoods. About 18 or so percent of it is as a result of lack of high growth, high demand jobs, and the bulk of it, 50% of it, is as a result of lack of scalable, saleable businesses in our community. So we have to attack each one of those elements independently to look at how we create those sustainable communities where we can live, work, play, and pray. We have still suffer under the result of a racist appraisal system, so our houses don't appreciate at the same level as our white counterparts, and housing is usually the biggest asset that an individual owns. So we have to fight to make sure that our houses in our neighborhoods are being fairly assessed and appraised. We have to, again, work to make sure that we're getting access and training to be able to compete in these high growth, high demand industries, and that we're not relegated to those jobs that are low skill, low pay. And then going back to access to capital and capacity building, which is the bulk of what is the result of the racial wealth gap, is lack of entrepreneurship in our communities. The majority of the businesses in our community we don't own, or if the majority of the businesses that we do own, they are not scalable businesses, and so we are not able to employ folks to create those ecosystems where people can have all of the amenities that they need in their community. And thus, we have to go outside of our community, which begets that retail gap, which further widens the racial wealth gap. So we have to take a holistic approach when we look at how we create sustainable communities and create economic ecosystems that foster economic productivity for our people.
Exactly.
I think one of the issues that we also have in order to create economic empowerment in our communities is we need to foster generational wealth. Oftentimes you hear people talk about generational wealth and we really don't have a concept of what it is. When I was growing up, we talked about old money. and we never ask the question of where does old money come from, and it comes from a matriarch or a patriarch starting a business, and then we bring the next generation into that business, and then the next generation, and once they start making some real money, we begin to have those conversations with the children and the nieces and nephews and the families, and we have those conversations of you should go to university for accounting, you should go to university for marketing, and so forth and so on. I can't tell you how many times I've seen black businesses close because the owner has passed away and there were no children that wanted to start the business. Everybody wants to start over. So going back to what Robert Johnson said, he said two pivotal things. He said, number one, and please correct me if the percentage is wrong, but I believe you said 95% of black businesses are solopreneur businesses. Is that correct, brother Johnson?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And so, when you take that percentage and you talk, and you also go back to what Brother Johnson said about how, we shouldn't be starting over all the time. We shouldn't be starting from scratch all the time, that there's wealth when you take something that is already established and you build upon it. Too oftentimes our children, our generations want to start over. They don't want to do what mom and daddy did and build on top of it and use that knowledge from them, from the generation that came before them. And so, I think that that's a huge problem. I see it firsthand because I service businesses all the time. And I think the second thing that we need to do is, there needs to be a separate group. I don't even necessarily think that is one group that needs to do one thing. I think there's multiple groups, because when I go back to what Brother Arnold said at the top of the hour, that we need policies that will encourage those people that are in government, in procurement, not to just use the master service agreements, but also use other channels of procurement. We need a group that is concentrating on that and lobbying for those things to happen. So, brother Nigel, who visited us a lot on the Wake Up Show Chicago, he, one of the main things that he shares with us is that when other nationalities, that when they come down to Capitol Hill, they're speaking with one voice. They're speaking the same bill, the same cause, and we need to do the exact same thing. We need to know what the cause is, and we all need to talk the same language, and that way we'll build momentum. I've landed.
Brother Pearson, when I first moved to Chicago, it was sort of a mecca of black businesses. There was so much going on here in the business area, and some of them were multinational businesses. So it wasn't that everything was so small and so solo. And then I looked around and everybody had sold those companies to somebody else, and they weren't in their families anymore, and they weren't sold to black people. They were sold to other people. The bigger businesses that we had that made Chicago that mecca, that made us have all these top 100s in the Black Enterprise magazine or whatever, they went out of our hands.
Yeah. Well, I think I want to go back to kind of the agenda for Lobby Day. We have a bus coming out of Chicago.
Okay.
We have um, we're going to have the strongest contingency of black business ever to convene
Hmm.
on Capitol Hill. We're going to be in meetings with people to discuss the things that are important to black business.
How can people
And
get on the bus?
we have one bus that's 50, and it's first come first served basis. If you want to get on the bus, so you can give us a call and get on the bus, and that you can drive down on a good luxury bus and don't have to worry about the traffic. Let someone else worry about that. A lot of people want to come down because they want to leave when they want to leave in their own cars. So it's going to be a great time. We're going to have a reception that is paid for by our partners in the chamber and its partners around the area, where we're going to have cocktails and refreshments, and we're going to have CEOs of major corporations who will be coming up speaking and networking, as well as heads of agencies and political figures. So it's going to be a day to remember, to come down and to be a part of history and making sure that black business voice is heard. Because if we don't show up, if we do not do the things we need to do, then it'll make us irrelevant. There are people who are counting on the fact that they can derail, undermine, and I see them very intentional, and they mask themselves as champions for us, but in reality, they are people who've been sent by other people to undermine what we represent as a whole. Because I think one of the comments that I heard is that we didn't talk about anything positive. Well, the only thing on here is talented, positive Black people who understand the value of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. So the intentionality of the people who were sent, in this case, Miss Sinclair, she needs to have an education on what really is business, because I doubt that she has a clear understanding about what it is that we do and how often we fight for Black business. To be a person to disrupt like that shows me the lack of sensitivity that she has in a public forum. But I believe that was because she was sent. So that's my comment. I keep it real. I don't. I'm old enough and I've been around long enough, and I fought with people like Dr. Arthur Fletcher, who fought for affirmative action, who wrote affirmative action for Black people. We do not have to apologize for who we are, what we stand for, because while some people are sleeping, we're fighting. And we need to always be aware of that. And to my sister, good luck to you. You know, wish you the very best or whatever you're trying to accomplish. But it's not an energy that we want to bring back to our group at the same time. So again, let me keep moving, because I don't want to give people too much space and too much air in this conversation. But I would like to, and as we get ready to wrap up, because we're wrapping up at 8:30, I
Yes,
would
we
like
are.
anyone else, if they have any particular question that they would like to ask the audience, or things that they would like us to respond to, or any questions they would have, we can scratch Miss Sinclair off our list of questions because she's no longer welcome in our conversation.
Well, Larry, you know what? Larry, you know what? One good time for everybody. If you want more information on Lobby Day, getting on the bus and getting registered, you can give us a call. You can give the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce a call at 309-740-4430. Also, you can also visit ilbcc.org. Once you go there, there's going to be a billboard. There's going to be a panel right on the front page, and you can click on it, and that's going to be the registration. You can get the information about getting on the bus and about joining us. This is your chance to stand up and let your voice be heard. We want to join with you. Now, I'm going to go back to our panelists. Have at it, gentlemen,
Hey, I
ladies and
just want to
gentlemen.
just comment on Larry's last comment. I think everything that was mentioned on here was mentioned as the glass is half full. There wasn't no one saying that, whether we're talking about franchising or MSA or participation, as if it was the end. We were speaking on as if these are opportunities for how we move forward. So this is all positive. I don't remember one negative comment. This is all positive opportunities, and thought leadership is what we're focused on. So
Right. And there's some things that I don't know, I don't even understand how anyone can be against us
yeah,
moving toward broader opportunity for
yeah,
ourselves in a space where we pay our way just as much as anybody else. I don't really get that. I don't really understand that. And I think sometimes people perhaps don't understand themselves what position they're taking when it
yeah,
comes to these things, because we want to prosper. And there's
right.
nothing wrong with that. And there's
Well,
nothing wrong with
sometimes when people get an assignment,
each other. But you know what? I'm not going to give them any more of my energy, not any of my energy, because my
hey,
energy
absolutely.
is
Hey,
for
we
those who want to work together, those who want to work together for the greater good, those who will put in time and put in work. We don't have to always agree about how to do it, but we certainly ought to agree about what needs to be done. And what
Exactly,
needs to be done, the outcome that we want, is for us to have our share of the business that's being done, for us to diversify and take advantage of the opportunities in front of us, and for us to use everything we've got to leverage for those outcomes.
exactly.
absolutely, absolutely. That's what it's all about, guys. I couldn't be prouder of the talented people we have on this call, MC and everyone, because I know where we're at and what we're trying to accomplish. It is an undertaking. that we must
It's
take
for
in
our
order
people.
to create the right environment.
Yeah. I mean, who's employing? I mean, this is. I mean, I know you're talking about total community, but if we build businesses, we're hiring from in the community. We're not recruiting from out of state to fill our jobs, whether they're service
Exactly.
jobs or even in technology space. We're hiring people from here. I mean,
Absolutely.
I grew up in Chicago public schools, undergrad, grad twice, and now working on my doctorate. It's all been here. And so the people we're hiring are from here.
And we're talking
Um,
about opportunity for your grandchildren and great grandchildren, and sometimes even for yourself. It's not too late for you. So we can maybe convert some of these folk who've been recruited to the wrong side to understand the work for the people, what it means to work for the people, what it means to understand that we're here for a purpose and it's not about ourselves. This is not about individual wealth. This is about collective progress.
right.
Absolutely. And guys, I'm
Yeah, we're
just
talking about
reminded.
economic independence, and we're
Go ahead. Go ahead, Robert.
no, I was just saying what we've been talking about is economic independence and opportunity. I mean, it's only when Black people want to have economic power that people feel threatened. It's only when we want our fair share at the table and to be given the things that we are owed. I mean, we worked and we were brought over to this country and have worked and have participated in every aspect of society, and we built this country.
Built it.
So we have the opportunity. We should benefit from our efforts, and we should be given and afforded the opportunities to participate. We're not asking for anything other than what we're due and what it is that we've earned. So there's nothing negative about that. I mean, if any other group, I mean, every other group has had an opportunity to get whether it be reparations, an apology, and access. And all we're asking for is to give us the opportunity to let us have our own economic independence.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I'd say this to you and to the young lady who spent a lot of time being, what I consider to be extremely negative. I kind of know who sent her, and that's fine because I think it's important that when you move it in the right direction, people get nervous. And that's a sign that they're nervous. Dr. Fletcher used to make the comment. He says, Larry, here's one thing you got to know about white folks. He said, first they laugh at you, then they ignore you, then they fight you, then you win. He said that's the order. They laugh at you, ignore you, fight you, and when they start fighting you, you're closer to winning. So we're
And when
closer to
we fight,
winning.
we win.
That's right. So we're prepared for the fight. We're committed to the fight, and I know that if we stay focused on our objectives of coming down to Springfield and meeting with the right people and doing what we need to do, that at the end of the day, our kids will benefit from what we do. Just like we benefited from what Dr. King did, what Malcolm did, and leaders before them, Perrin Mitchell, all these wonderful people who fought to make sure that it was better. Now it's our job to make it even better, and we still got a long ways to go. But a part of that making it better means that we have to mobilize, organize, and we have to make our voices felt. And we got to understand the political system, how it works, and get it to work for us and demand our money. They ain't giving us nothing. I try to tell people all the time when they talk about, $50 million and all this stuff, and when IDOT has money for transportation. Well, guess what? Transportation is funded by a motor fuel tax, which means that if you put gas in your car, it's your money.
That's
And
right.
how
Come on
often
now.
did you put money in that gas tank and fund infrastructure and you didn't get a return on your investment?
That's right.
It started back in 1977 when that was how infrastructure was funded to a motor fuel tax, and that's how it's funded today. So all that tax money, everything else, you paid for it. They did not do you any favors. They collect taxes from you, Social Security tax, everything you can imagine. We are fighting for what's right. I'll make this comment, and I would ask the panelists to give a couple of minutes for closing. Dr. King said, and it's one of the most powerful comments I thought Dr. King said. He said, if we're wrong, God Almighty Himself is wrong. Now, that's a very powerful comment coming from a minister who said that what we were doing was the right thing to do. What we're doing is the right thing to do to fight for economic reciprocity for our tax dollars. It's the right thing. We should continue to fight for that, and we will.
Well, I would like my last words to be the words of Frederick Douglass, who said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will."
Amen. Arnold?
I can't follow Dr. Adams.
I'm glad I'm not the last one. I mean, after her.
Simple, man. I'm just saying, this is it's just cool. I'm just happy to be here and happy to continue to move us forward and continuously improve and share knowledge with each other and help make this a better place for all of us. Because when we make it a better place, everybody wins. When we do stuff, everybody. So this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I'll just quote two men whom I admire. The first one being my grandfather, who said two things that I've carried with me in my entire life is that if a man can beat you thinking, he could beat you living.
Well,
And then the second thing that he said was common sense ain't common. Everybody ain't got it.
Right.
And then the second man that I'll quote is Martin Luther King when he talked about the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. And we have been here a long time seeking justice. And what we're trying to do is bend that arc even closer and quicker towards the justice that we've earned and that we deserve.
Oh, man.
Hey, MC, you have a
Yeah.
comment you want to leave us with, man?
Well, you know what? I just want to thank our esteemed panelists, Robert Johnson, Esquire, Mr. Arnold Crater, Dr. Carol Adams. This thing couldn't have been possible without you guys. On Saturday, I want to let our listening audience know something. On Saturday, we're going to continue this conversation on the Wake Up Show Chicago on WVON 1690. We go live at 9 a.m. So you can listen to us on iHeartRadio, on Facebook, or on YouTube. On that day, we're going to continue to talk about Lobby Day. We're going to continue to talk about DEIA, but we have a very, very special thing going on. There are some awesome Black-owned businesses that are up and coming, and we're going to have some of those entrepreneurs on the show to talk about what they do, how it impacts our community, and just the awesomeness that they bring. And it may be some opportunities for you guys. So you know what? We hope that you tune in to the Wake Up Show Chicago on Saturday, and we're looking forward to seeing you at Lobby Day as well.
Hey,
Larry, I'll let you close it out.
Les Brown, he says, strive to get on top because it's the bottom that's overcrowded.
Woo. Come on.
Take care, guys. Hey, have a great day. Look forward to seeing you guys coming up soon.
All right. We'll see you
Peace.
then.
Step into history with the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce as we make a powerful statement with Lobby Day 2024. Experience the energy as we gather the largest concentration of Black business owners ever to advocate for Black-owned businesses at our state capitol. Join us and your colleagues in bringing the strength of our collective voice directly to the halls of power. Let's ensure our presence is felt in every corner of the building, on every floor, and at the tables where decisions are made. Together, we will make a lasting impact and pave the way for a brighter future for Black entrepreneurship in Illinois. Don't miss this opportunity to be a part of history in the making. To find out more information or to become a member, visit our website at ilbcc.org.